know if you saw that recent movie, Don't Think Twice, about improv theatre. That's a style of theatre where actors go on stage basically completely unprepared. No script, no story, no advanced knowledge of whatever's going to happen, and all various different techniques and things that happen and so on are going to provide the script on the spur of the moment. And it struck me, being the spur of the moment, that there were a lot of seeming life lessons caught up in this living in the present and going with it style. Well, we have a great improv theatre company here in Cape Town, and I was delighted to get a chance to speak to a member of that company, I think founder of that company, Furniss, about improv, what it entails, and how it might be relevant to your life, even if you're not an actor. Watch. Furniss, it's great to have you here. I have been plotting this for ages. And, you know, it all started because I watched a movie called Don't Think Twice, which you've probably seen. It occurred to me that it seems that there's a lot about improvisation in theatre that is relevant way beyond the theatre. I mean, theatre itself obviously has always been relevant way beyond the theatre, but improvisation seems to be a whole different kettle of fish.
Yes.
So can you start off by telling us what it really entails? What if someone were coming to watch improv, what would they expect?
So I think it's important to say at the outset that there are lots of different kinds of improv, and the improv that we do that gets performed in front of a live audience is improv for performance.
Okay.
So as opposed to, say, for example, improv as a sort of therapeutic kind of form of expression, or improv to develop a character. With the improv that we do is to make stuff up in front of a live audience who is there to witness us making stuff up. So it's improv, so it's product. We're actually making product.
Is it not meant to resemble what actors do behind the scenes? I mean, when you've got a script, do you still work on improv?
You can still work on improv, so you can improvise your backstory, and you can improvise parts of it, but obviously that improv is improv as process.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when you're performing in front of a live audience, your focus is product. You're making stuff up in front of an audience for their enjoyment.
So that means, I mean, how real is that? You know, when a lot of people watch reality TV and think it's real. They don't realize that I always say nothing on TV is real. I mean, even this. So if you've got an audience in front of you and you've got a criteria that you have to entertain, does that not make it less spontaneous or anything?
Well, it doesn't, because you don't know what you're going to do. You literally don't know what you're going to do.
But don't you, I mean, so I know that you also train actors in theatre sports.
In improv.
Improv.
Yes.
So what is trained improv not an oxymoron?
No, because what you're learning is that you're learning the rules and skills of improv. And then when you're improvising, you're applying them. So for example, one of the fundamental rules of improv is to say yes to anything that happens. Because no is a block and yes is accepting an offer. And yes helps you build the story and helps you guarantee that your improv partner's ideas are great and you can move forward after a yes. And that's a fundamental rule of improv that takes an enormous lot of practice to get right, because we defaulted
we don't do it in our
no.
lives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We absolutely defaulted into the no. So learning to say yes is one of the things that it's probably one of the only real things that you learn. And once you've learned that, the improv philosophy sort of ripples out, and you get to experience the improv philosophy, and that philosophy can be applied to life. You've always got a relationship with your audience, so you want your audience to feel like it really is being made up, because it really is being made up. And as proof, a solid way of proving that is to get audience participation, to get their suggestions, to get their input for you might ask them for a word, or you might ask them for a starting point or a starting location, something to help them see.
So proof is necessary.
I think for an audience it is, and ironically, failing is also proof. So not everything works.
Yeah.
Not everything is funny. And you need to be able to be in a completely safe but also high risk space where you might very well try something and it will be a spectacular failure and absolute proof that you're making stuff up and that didn't work.
But so that's a nice theory, but what about the audience?
Well, that's exactly. The failure reaffirms how hard things are. As long as your audience understands that you're making stuff up, as long as they understand that in the beginning, they are amazed, even when you fail.
So, I mean, obviously it's entertainment, but is there a greater goal as opposed to a regular script? Maybe, there's a message in a play, or we go to the theatre to experience other things, maybe hopefully to be changed by it, I think. Those kind of things. Does improv have the same function, or has it got a different result for the audience?
I think it's got exactly the same function, but we have to totally accept up front that we don't know what's going to happen on the night.
Sounds terrifying for actors. I mean...
No. The more you improvise and the more you practice improvisation, the less you experience your own fear, and the more you know that you're going to be held by others. So
it's very cooperative.
Totally. It's 100% cooperative. Even if you're improvising on your own in front of an audience, then you have a relationship with your audience.
Right.
And it depends on them.
So it's not always comedy, because it seems to me that it almost always seems to be comedy. I mean, my major exposure is through theatre sports, which I think is supposed to be comedy because it's a competition.
And because it's short form, so it lends itself to comedy. But it's not always comedy.
And it's not always short form?
Definitely not always short form.
So you can do a full-length production improvised?
Yes. Just to give you an idea, now at the end of the first week of August, we've got 3 nights of improv. Improguys is the company that I'm improvising with at the moment. And so on the first night we're doing 3 different formats. So we've got 3 nights of improv. We're doing 3 different formats. The first night we are doing a format called the chair, which is a format that I invented. So that would be the first night. The second night we're doing a thing called Little Space Between, which is improvised scenes around intimacy and relationships, and a lot of that stuff isn't funny.
No, I suppose not.
But it could be. It could also be hilarious. So it has a wide range of possibility. And there we'll get interesting suggestions from an audience who will write things down for us. And we'll use those as titles for the scenes. And then our final night's going to be a brand new thing that we've never done on stage before, called On the Couch, where we're going to do a series of scenes and moments in therapy.
That could get really serious.
It could get really, really serious.
And personal.
It's
interesting. It makes me think about, in that situation, what is true and what is lying, and how much of that is life. How much, anyway, never mind improv, do we act in life to kind of fake things or to present versions of ourselves that aren't real?
So my theory is quite simply that actually the closer we get to a state of unself-consciousness, the truer we are about revealing ourselves.
Right.
And it's exactly the same in improv. We tested out a new format a couple of months ago called Tribute, which is just fantastic. So in the beginning we get suggestions from the audience and we do a mockumentary style documentary about a band, how it started, who was in it, what they were busy with at the time, and we play out some of those scenes. And then in the second half we get suggestions from the audience who give us song titles, and we perform based on what they've just seen, and we improvise as a tribute show. The band songs.
Right.
It's crazy. And of course, so
fantastic,
scary
yeah.
and really out there. And it just so happened that on the night that we performed that for the first time ever, we were able to change the energy in the room. So we were able to go to that amazing place where no one will ever be the same again. Sometimes you'll have the striving will be made visible, and then sometimes it's like the door will open and there will be a direct electrical connection between the performers, the audience, and the universe.
Because it seems as if a lot of improv is also about the relationship between the people, as you said, the relationship between the people and the audience. And that definitely is obviously a life lesson that we could take into the rest of life. I think a lot of what you've been talking about and what you do in improv is, I mean, certainly saying yes, that's so hugely powerful. You know, I mean, it's when you think about it, it becomes scary and daring and maybe a little bit dangerous, but I can well imagine how it facilitates, because it's almost like, okay, if the rule is that you have to allow or agree or whatever, it removes a whole bunch of disagreement, but it forces you to contribute something.
There's that, but what it also does, and I think that this is also the enormous challenge, is that it forces you not to have your own agenda. So you're co-creating.
Right.
You're co-creating the story. What you say will be what I respond to. I can't not listen to you. I have to really hear what you're saying so that I can contribute to what you said, not
Just impose your own thing on top
not
of it.
exactly. So it's one of the hardest lessons to learn of improv, and the most valuable ones, is to let go of your own agenda. The only
to
time
listen.
exactly,
Such
to
an important
listen,
one.
and you can only listen if you're 100% present. You have to be there.
Yeah.
You have to be in that moment, and you have to really hear what's going on in order to be part of it and in order to contribute. And sometimes when you're listening and you're really, really there, the best way that you can contribute is by stepping away.
You said if there is a rule, it's the say yes rule. And they mentioned that in that movie that I mentioned, Don't Think Twice, but the striking thing, and I guess to justify the name of the movie, that they said in that movie that really characterizes improvising is don't think. So don't think, do. I mean, you just got to. And is that a life lesson?
It's a life lesson. Keith Johnston always said, always trust your first instinct, trust your first idea, because your second one is you second guessing. Your second one is never going to be as good as the first one, because it's not your immediate response. And it speaks to that voice of, that's not a good idea,
Right.
or you can do better, or they won't like it. You know, it's the voice of negative. So he suggests that you go with your first instinct because it brings you into the present. And he also says stop the anxiety around your idea needing to be brilliant. It doesn't need to be brilliant. Your team will turn it into something brilliant.
It becomes part of something bigger.
They will make it. They have to say yes. So if the suggestion is let's go to the shops really week, you know, your response might be, yes, we need to supply the
we need to have dinosaur food.
Exactly. 100%.
Yeah.
You nailed it. Exactly. So the initial, if you say yes to the initial offer, which might not be a life-changing thing, you have the potential to move it forward into that beautiful place of co-creation.
You know, now I'm thinking it should be compulsory for everyone to go and watch.
This is what it should be compulsory for everyone to do.
So what about them doing? What about ordinary people learning who are not actors? Where is there room for that?
Yes, twice a year we do a course for normal people to learn the skills of improv.
Normal people as opposed to actors.
Yes.
Yes.
So we run courses, and it's an 8-week course, once a week, to learn the skills of improv, to improve how you are in the universe.
That makes an enormous amount of sense. Because just thinking about a world where people say yes, where people are forced to listen to each other and to essentially cooperate. And because also the interesting thing is that it seems to remove a certain level of competition. I mean, theatre sports is a game, so that's a different meaning of competition. But in the sense that no one's trying to be right. So if you have to say yes or yes and then add something, you can't make your idea righter than theirs. You have to follow on from it the whole time.
Absolutely. But yes and.
Yes.
Because but is a no. Yes, and one of the extraordinary byproducts of that kind of work, where you're really working with other people in that way, is that you learn to take yourself a lot less seriously.
Which is also really
Which
important.
is so fun.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I do is I sometimes get invited to work with a group of corporate people or business people, and to help them with this kind of work. And
Because they're in a team, so...
Exactly. And I've always suggested that this is the answer to team building, because we're building a team. What is a team made of?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of contracts do you need to negotiate in order to be a cooperative team? How long do you need the team to last for? How big is the team? How small is the team? What are the, if we can use the rules of improv to help build teams, then it's the exact opposite of your usual team building, which is always competitive.
Right.
I will never get chosen because I'm left hand, left eye dominant, can't hold a ball, am very, very useless at whitewater rafting, and people will hate me in their team. And that's the opposite of team building.
So the other life lesson then that maybe might be more challenging to apply to the rest of life is kind of don't prepare, just show up. So can we apply that to the rest of life? Don't prepare?
I think what's maybe a little bit more helpful is don't be hysterical if what you've prepared doesn't work. Because I think that, and particularly in high risk environments, in corporate environments, people have a plan A and then they have to institute a plan B, and if that plan B fails, then they need the emergency plan C. And I think it prevents them from showing up. And I think it prevents them from absorbing the possibility that it doesn't have to come from them, and that actually, that if they're in the room, they might actually see and hear the possibility of it being a completely different thing. But you have to be, you have to be open to that.
Yeah.
And that's very scary for people. And once people do start that, it's liberating. I always say that improv is the difference between responsibility and response-ability. So the responsibility is that very sort of serious thing with the moustache.
Right.
And your ability to respond is just waiting, being there.
I've never thought of that. That's a really profound thought about what responsibility, because responsibility is such a heavy word.
So heavy, onerous.
Yeah.
It sits around your shoulders like that albatross.
Yeah.
And if you break it up into your ability to respond, it's liberating.
That's amazing. So then if we take, you're talking about corporate, and if we say that in the corporate world or in the regular kind of capitalist world that we live in, everything is goal and outcome oriented, would improv change that? Because it becomes more team oriented and more your personal goal is not so important. So can that still work in our world, in our corporate world?
I think that the issue is more that this goal-oriented focus is not successful, and that we are needing to find different ways of operating in that kind of environment, and it needs to be more fluid, and it needs to take more people into consideration, and it needs people to be more present to recognize each other's abilities and strengths, and where other people might need to step in.
So do you ever find yourself then like bringing it into your personal life, like your relationship and your dealings with people outside of your work? Do you find yourself bringing in the listening, the yes skill, those kind of things in order to make it work better?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So the skills are kind of transferable into everyday life.
The skills and the philosophy. Because one of the simple philosophies of improv, which is completely different from normal theatre, is that normal theatre is about conflict. You want to create conflict.
Yeah.
Conflict
Drama
creates drama.
conflict, yeah.
Exactly. With improv, you can't, because you're making it up. Particularly improv that gets performed in front of a live audience. You don't want to start a fight because you have no page 22 where the policeman arrives to end it.
Right.
So you're constantly on the lookout. The framework is different where you're problem solving. So you might start a scene by telling me that the whole world is on fire, and my response is going to be to try and solve that. How do we fix it?
Right.
I might be watching a scene with two players, and my focus is, what can I do to improve it? How can I help it? How can I make it better? So with that as a philosophy, problem solving, conflict resolution, that's your frame of reference. That's what you're looking for all the time, instead of being the creator of kak. Drama.
So your life is about resolution, conflict resolution instead of
Well, it teaches you how
escalation.
to. I mean,
It teaches
I have to be honest with you. I'm an extremely confrontational person, but the improv techniques help me not go there all the time.
So then it has changed your life outside of the stage.
Completely.
So I think the takeaway that I'm getting from this is that on the one hand, the audience kind of attends watching the whole thing are potentially changed by the experience that happens that they suddenly become a part of, but that the whole thing is takeawayable to the rest of life. When actually, unlike that proscenium march, this actually isn't about theatre. It's about the relationships between people and what happens when you listen to another person's reality.
100%. And one of the other rules of improv is that something needs to change. Something needs to change. There needs to be change. So if I start the scene like this, I know that I'm not going to be the same all the way through. Something's going to happen to me.
And that is the life lesson. In life, we come without a script. And plenty of stuff's going to happen. And if we've got some script or predefined idea, or expecting the policeman to arrive on page 22, we're in trouble because
Absolutely.
life doesn't work like that.
No.
So it's a life lesson.
And there's nothing more humbling than a quick slap down as an arrogant improviser who wants to be pointlessly original.
Right.
Because you cannot operate like that. You know, that's for one-man stand-up comedy.
Yes. So you mentioned that you've got a couple of shows coming. Tell me again, when is that and where?
On the 3rd, 4th and 5th of August, we're performing at the Alexander Bar, and we're doing those 3 completely separate formats.
Amazing.
Very intimate. And then in the middle of August, we've got 2 shows at the Galloway Theatre. I think on the 17th and 18th of August, we've got 2 shows at the Galloway Theatre. And I think one of them is going to be a musical. We're going to do a full hour-long improvised musical.
Sounds scary all over again.
It is. It's so scary, especially for me because I can't sing. But I love it more than life itself. You have to let go of so much in order for that to happen. And it is transformational. Especially if you're singing in gibberish. Which often happens to me. I'm often in gibberish singing. I don't know why.
I don't know, life could be singing in gibberish as well. Well, that to me I think is the lesson. That the more we improvise our lives and let go and sing, the happier we're going to be.
Completely. It really is. I do believe that improv is the gateway drug to happiness. You know, it's just...
Brilliant.
There's so many opportunities for joy.
Truly amazing stuff, and amazing the different ways we learn to learn from art, because art is about life. You can still catch Improv guys performing at the Alexander Theatre Bar tonight, Friday night, and tomorrow night, and there are more performances in 10 days' time. So visit their Facebook page, Improv guys, where you can see the latest performances, and you can also check out there or write to this address to find out about an upcoming improvisation course for non-actors, where you can learn a lot more about how to unlock a lot of your inner self and maybe change some of your life by learning about improvisation. I'll be back here next week at the usual time. Don't forget to visit our Facebook page to find out what's going on, and I'll see you right here.